SpectreVision Radio.
But I just had to make it very clear, if you listen to my podcast and you deny slavery, and if you're a cold-blooded Negro and you talking about your people didn't have no African ancestry, you're ignoring mitochondrial DNA, this ain't the show for you, babe. Y'all have pissed me clean the fuck off. Actually, I'm not even pissed. I'm disturbed. I'm confused. I'm lost. I'm bamboozled, gooped. Hey, babes. Welcome. En Cabo Acuaba. Bienvenidos a Pasewa Guananga Def. What's up, y'all? Welcome to a Little Juju podcast. This is the Africana ethereal podcast, diving deep into the medicinal, the magical, and the ancestral spiritual tools that can help get us free. And I'm your host, Juju Bay, author of the book of Juju. What else am I? Oshun Priestess, Oreye, yeah, Oshuno. And of course, your favorite big cousin conjurer. Welcome back. I hope y'all are well. I'm doing okay. I'm still in Senegal. Even still, y'all, I'm still in Senegal. I have to hold on to that because when I got back, I spent some time with my family in Virginia, and I generally stay up on top of the news, but when I'm with my family, that is what is on all day long. It is just news. President, news. What's going on? News, violence. Like, it's when I'm inundated with all of the mess that is American politics. And so in some ways, it doesn't make one feel good. It doesn't make one feel secure. It doesn't make one feel hopeful. So I'm trying to battle the feeling of calmness and peace that I felt, while I was away, and then just being hit with so much mess here. And when I travel in general internationally, but even when I was in Senegal, a lot of people couldn't believe that what was happening in America was really happening. They were like, "What is your president really doing that? Like, are you good? Are y'all okay? Why are you going back?" Like genuine fear and concern for us. And in some ways, it was like, it's true, y'all. It is true. They was like, wait, y'all really be having mass shootings? Yes, that is true, y'all. Wait, he really did? Yes, that is true. But in some ways, it kind of made me feel like I was able to connect with people there too, because there are people in other places who are concerned about us and who are concerned about our well-being genuinely. And to know that, I'm not saying that because it's not an option for everyone to just leave the country. And I know a lot of people who are. I know a lot of people who are leaving the country. I mean, I'm as of right now, I'm here. I'm locked in here. But international connection and building is what is going to save us. We have to think beyond our locale. We have to be learning and seeing and connecting with people who are not here. It expands our worldview. It expands how we understand life. And it even expands what we think is possible. It is so easy to think. And now I know all my listeners are not from America. I just had a listener say, I'm listening from Uganda. Hey, to my international girls. Listen up real quick. To my Americans, it is so easy to think that America is the only way of living. It is so easy to think that our problems are the problems of everybody else. It is so easy to think that this is it. And through international connection, whether that's travel or being on the internet, thank goodness for the internet. We can see how other people live. We can see what's going on in other places. We are able to build and expand our worldview. So my offering today is to think globally, act locally, but think globally. I wish I knew who coined that, but I was watching Judas and the Black Messiah, and I believe I got think globally, act locally there. I don't know if that was a term from the Black Panthers themselves, but either way, it has stuck with me as I travel. So that's what I'm offering y'all today. Think globally, act locally. So in that same vein-ish, let's get into our first segment today. So our first segment today is Ogun's Internet. I love this segment. This is where I talk about what is going on the World Wide Web. What are y'all discussing on the God of Technology, the Orisha of Technology's interwebs? Shout out to Ogun. So today's Ogun's Internet, I'm actually going to talk about something that I said on the internet that blew up, and I was not anticipating this, but it's an important conversation that we need to have. So I was on Threads. I just was talking. I said a little thing. This is what I said. I said, I don't know about anybody else, but I am seriously alarmed at the amount of people who are denying their African and enslaved ancestry. I can't believe we have reached a point where more than that one friend thinks Black American people are just indigenous to the U.S. and slavery was a lie. Is everyone okay? And then I followed that up with saying, no, niggas are not okay. For some reason, this garnered hundreds of comments, reposts, arguments, dragging, argue me down. And all I said is that we have reached a point in our history where Black people, particularly Black Americans, are denying having any ancestors from Africa while also denying that we descend from people who were enslaved. That does not feel like a jarring thing to say. I mean, I'm jarred by the fact that we're here, but I never thought that me saying that would have people in my comments like being like, no. Y'all, people were saying that slavery was a lie. They're saying that, sis, you need to wake up. How come we've never seen any slave ships? If slavery was real, if it was real, then there would be artifacts. I'm like, there are literally, okay. The Clotilda, okay. Y'all, there's only been drawings of slave ships and you're listening to the white man. You need to look into your ancestry. I'm not African. My ancestors are from America. My ancestors are indigenous. Someone said she was indigenous to Alabama. And I was like, okay. Here's the thing. First of all, Africa is generally the birthplace of humanity. So you can't say that you don't have any African ancestry if it is the birthplace of humanity. But that's just like general, like, fine, we can give it that. Of all humanity, right? Big Mama started on the continent. All of our big mamas started on the continent. That's just general science. That aside, I feel that this new wave of we're not African, we weren't slaves, is actually doing the colonizer's job. Like colonialism we're watching it work in real time. We're watching misinformation work in real time. People out here looking like me saying that you have no ancestors from Africa and that your people are indigenous to Alabama. Your people are indigenous to Tennessee. Your people are indigenous to Virginia. Now, does that mean that there were no indigenous people? Absolutely. There are Native Americans. Y'all niggas could have some Native American ancestry, but to say that you have zero African ancestry, like, it doesn't make any sense. This gives very middle school, I'm Cherokee. Y'all aren't Cherokee. Some of y'all might be. And I want to acknowledge, because another thing y'all were saying was, well, there was a time where, during slavery or whatever, that, white slave owners, they kind of collapsed people's tribes. They collapsed Native people and called them colored, and everyone kind of got thrown into a colored pot. Even some Native Americans got thrown into the Negro pot. That is true. So we did lose indigenous tribes. Of course, we lost African tribes because everybody was Negro. Indigenous people, Native Americans are the only people with tribes. Black people just became Black. There were tribal separations and differences, and we all became Black. in some places, including Native American people. That does not mean that you Negroes who look like me are indigenous to Tennessee. How, in what world do you think it's okay to deny that slavery happened? So now the denial of slavery means, like, the fights that our people have gone through, the things that our ancestors have experienced, y'all are going to sit there and say that that wasn't true? And I'm not saying that we can't be proud of being Black American. I think that Black Americans, we have a tricky relationship with connection and home. I don't deny that. I don't think that we necessarily have to say we're African people to feel at home. My people have been in the U.S. for some generations. This is home too. This is home. This is closer to my home. Baltimore is my home. My ancestors are from South Carolina and Virginia and Alabama, and then a random Trini ancestor. Trini to the born, okay? But I'm not going to sit here and deny the fights, the pain, the trauma, the stress of chattel slavery, because I am so desperate to say that I have a home. I have a home wherever the fuck I say a home is. I don't have to deny that and do the work of the colonizer. You niggas people is from Africa. You niggas are not indigenous to Maryland. Yes, there could have been some people here, but I guarantee you it's not majority of y'all. And I'm not talking about specific groups, because I know y'all like to tussle and be like, these groups that I'm not talking about no groups. I'm talking about y'all idiots who are saying that slavery did not exist. You are literally making it harder for niggas. And you are one. I cannot believe we have reached this point. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. But you know what? I can. We are in the age of misinformation and foolishness. I understand that, y'all. People in the comments like, why do we have to give Africa everything? Like, I'm not African. Nobody said that you have to. What are you talking about? We are talking about where your ancestors were literally kidnapped from. Why are you erasing the history of kidnapping? And a lot of our ancestors, which y'all don't know because y'all don't read, y'all are saying, well, my grandma told me we've been in Alabama since the beginning, so I know we're indigenous. You know, a lot of oral tradition and history, a lot of our ancestors have said that we have indigenous ancestry or that we have been in the U.S. forever, because the story of slavery is so horrific. And the story of the entrance of other, like whiteness, into our bloodline has been so horrific that some of them have created, curated, or even lied to remove the strain of what slavery did. That is also what you can find in the research. That all of us actually don't have as much indigenous connection as we think, but somewhere people have said that because they didn't want to say that great-great-great-granddaddy was actually the slave owner of your great-great-grandmother. Because I come from a lineage of that. I have elders in my family who say that we're Native American. We have Native American ancestry. I'm not denying that. And also based on the research, we actually may not. But I do know where whiteness comes in. And I'm not the only one with that story. I am so ashamed. Do not let our desire for home and connection and whatever stop us from ignoring the factual truth. There is no world where freedom is possible if we don't acknowledge the existence of fucking slavery. Are y'all mad? You think they made this up? And a lot of people who have this belief system are hoodoos. That's what confused me. Emmanuel Bass Knight, wonderful hoodoo practitioner, was like, wait, these people are hoodoo saying this? Yeah. If hoodoo by definition, according to Katrina Hazard Donald, hoodoo scholar, says that hoodoo is the folk spiritual controlling and healing tradition originating among and practiced primarily but not exclusive by captive African Americans and their descendants in the southern United States. How could you deny slavery and be practicing a tradition that is by captive African Americans and the descendants of the captives? How could that be hoodoo? Hoodoo was literally born out of slavery. The need to resist, the need to have a faith practice, the need to feel a semblance of control is where hoodoo was born from. How do we deny that? How do we deny the African medicine that we see throughout hoodoo? And there's no reason that there's so many similarities, but y'all are just saying it's because you're indigenous to Mississippi. So fuck the Cherokee, fuck the Piscataway. It's so disrespectful to indigenous people. And again, I'm not saying y'all don't have Native American ancestry. I'm not saying that. But why are you so hell-bent on denying Africa? You know, anti-Africanness was the precursor to anti-Blackness. You're just doing the work of the colonizer. Congratulations. And if any of y'all have anything to say to me that discounts this, let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck. I will block you. I would never go back and forth with anybody about this fact. But I just had to make it very clear. If you listen to my podcast and you deny slavery, and if you're a cold-blooded Negro and you talking about your people didn't have no African ancestry, you're ignoring mitochondrial DNA, this ain't the show for you, babe. Y'all have pissed me clean the fuck off. Actually, I'm not even pissed. I'm disturbed. I'm confused. I'm lost. I'm bamboozled, gooped. Be careful of not engaging in anti-Blackness and anti-Africanity, y'all. There's a world where we can acknowledge America as home and not lie about our ancestry and what happened. Because our people did build this shit. We can acknowledge that. This can be home, y'all. It's okay. It's okay. We're Black American. Being Black American is fab. Being American, being Black American, that eats. Embrace that. Last thing I want to say, and then I have to move on. Even if your people are indigenous to, Alabama's on my mind today, Alabama. So you're saying your ancestors are indigenous to Alabama. You look like me. So nobody in your bloodline ever fucked somebody who came from Africa. Your people have remained so pure that your entire bloodline is Alabama indigenous. No one ever had sex. No one ever no one procreated with anyone who came from Africa ever. So all of our melanated good people here in the US are indigenous to Alabama and indigenous to, meaning since when was Alabama the birthplace of humanity? I gotta move the fuck on, y'all. Y'all are a key. Like I said, I'm not here to tussle. I don't give a fuck what y'all say. I'm gonna just delete it. This is not the space for misinformation. I didn't even mean to go on this long about it, but y'all was trying to eat me up. There's over 300 comments. I had to turn the comments off. You would have thought I said Donald Trump is my real father. Like, you would have thought I said something so, like, bitch, what are you talking about? You would have thought all I said was, I'm surprised niggas ain't claiming that the answer slavery no more. That's great. I didn't get the memo that we was denying slavery. That's all the fuck I said. Topic 2, y'all. Let's talk about the ice cubes. Okay, so a couple people sent me this. There was an ice voodoo doll found in uptown New Orleans. I don't know if y'all saw this. Maybe the indigenous people of New Orleans saw it. I don't know. But there was this image of like this ice doll. It was like wrapped around this pole in New Orleans, and they had a sign on it that said ice. We'll add a picture here. And um, I'm going to read a clip from Fox 8 Live. It said the discovery comes as federal immigrant enforcement has escalated across South Louisiana in recent weeks, drawing protests and criticism from local leaders and concern from immigrant communities. So federal authorities have said the operation targets criminal illegal aliens. And although the records reviewed by the Associated Press show criminal histories were documented for fewer than a third of those arrested in the early days of the sweep. So Southern Louisiana is having an ice sweep. Ice sweeps are going on all throughout the country. But in particular, so many of y'all sent me this voodoo doll because they're like, people are fighting back. Da, da, da. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was cute. It's hard to know if that was a real practitioner. I think a lot of times in Louisiana, there are real voodoo practitioners. And then there are people who it's become commercialized. And so this could have just been, who's to say that it was an actual working or that it was an actual spell, but really just someone, putting it up there because you're in Louisiana and this is showing a sign that we are against this. And why, if we're in Louisiana, why not put a voodoo doll? So I thought that was funny and cute, and I appreciate y'all sending it to me. But what stood out to me from this article, it says that the increased enforcement has coincided with heightened federal monitoring of online activity and protests. So law enforcement records reviewed by the AP show state and federal agencies are tracking social media discussion and public sentiment related to the immigration crackdown, citing concerns about threats to agents. This news article clearly said, yeah, we are watching those of you who are talking disparagingly about what ICE is doing. We are scouring the internet. It later went on to say that they arrested someone who was speaking about ICE. So as we listen, here I am speaking about it, right? But for it to be in an article so clearly to say, yeah, federal agents are paying attention to you, I want us to just keep that in mind. We are in a heavy surveillance state. It cannot be ignored anymore. It's in the articles. I think at one point it was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this undercover. It's not undercover anymore. We're like, no, we are watching you. We're watching what you're saying. We're watching what you're doing. We're watching what you're tweeting. We're watching what you're podcasting. We are paying attention to you. So I'm not saying do not speak up. Listen, I'm here speaking about it. I'm saying to remember that you're being watched. Just remember that. And whatever you do in your efforts, remember that you are being surveilled. I actually just met someone last night at a party, and he oversees contracting stuff. And I was like, contractors and buildings. And I was like, oh, what building are you working on? He's like, well, I haven't done a lot of buildings, but I helped implement, oh goodness, what's the term? Basically, I help implement surveillance at the train stations so that he was like, yeah, at certain train stations, every person's face is physically marked in a system. And y'all don't know about that. But so there's a database that has everyone who goes through certain train systems in New York. All of our faces are there through facial recognition. If they wanted to find you, they could. If they wanted to see where you were going, they could. And he told me, he was like, yeah, I was organizing that. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, okay, surveillance job. He was like, yeah, it's really layered. So, he's like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I had to fight personally in order to do that work. And I was like, yeah, of course. So I'm bringing that up to say, yeah, it ain't hard to find your child. So protect yourself. Because if you walk into the train, they're doing it. I just saw that Wegmans, there's a certain Wegmans, I think in the city, in New York, that's starting to do facial recognition for people who walk in and out. Wegmans. Apparently Target's been doing it. Apparently Walmart's been doing it. I didn't know these things. Apparently it's existed. So as we see with conversations about ICE, Fox saying, yeah, they're looking. They're seeing online what you're tweeting about, what you're saying, what you're doing. Wegmans, protect yourselves, your spiritual protect, whatever it is. Just keep that in mind, okay? And I don't want to say that to scare us, but through reading this article, that's the biggest thing that stood out to me more than the voodoo doll. There's voodoo dolls everywhere. But it was what this voodoo doll then is bringing up about living in the surveillance state. So let me know what y'all think about that in the comments, child. And we'll take a break to pay the light bill, and we'll be right back. A Little Juju podcast is a labor of love, but it is labor nonetheless. The time, the energy, resources, team, all of that, it takes a lot, but it takes money. It takes money. So if you want to invest in a Little Juju podcast, you can do so on Patreon. Patreon is a way to give monthly. I have so many different tiers and options for you. $7 a month, that is a yummy New York coffee with oat milk, a little latte situation, maybe a dirty chai with a croissant. Actually, I don't even know if I can get a croissant with that, but for $7 a month, you can support a Little Juju podcast with the... I need a new microphone, child. I got about a team lunch. Okay. So if you enjoy this show, then come in and let's embody the energy of exchange. I give you the good juju. You give me $7. I think it's like okay trade-off. If you're like Juju, I want to do more. I want to be in your community. I want to learn more from you. I have other tiers. So there's different tiers from the Juju Bays, the JBs, the Bad Bitch Witches. And with those tiers, you will get free readings of the month. We have meetups, card divination workshops. I be on the Patreon, private Discord. We got all the things. So if you're interested in that, you want to join the Juju community, head on over to patreon.com/JujuBay. And biggest shout out to all my old and new patrons. Thank you for sharing in the energy of abundance and exchange with me. As you are sharing with me, I'm sharing it back to you tenfold. May you have all the prosperity and the goodness and the blessings and the ide that you can invest in your own blessing, in your own careers, in your own, whatever you came here to do. I pray you're able to do it. So thank y'all so much for your likes, your comments, your shares. That also is a way to invest in the show. Telling your mama, telling your friends, telling your homegirl, telling your ex-nigga. Thank y'all so much for sharing and spreading the good juju gospel. So let's get back to the show, and I will see y'all on the Patreon. Okay, y'all, our next segment is Black business. And no, I'm not going to convince y'all to join my MLM. I want to talk about Black business. What is going on in the African diaspora? The diaspora that we're all a part of? Black business, because we're Black. And it originated because of being African. So in the Black business segment, we're going to talk about what's happening across the world because it matters to us. Okay. I want to go back to Senegal because I had a beautiful time. And I didn't tell y'all last episode about my book talk. So the Book of Juju is in Dakar. And shout out to Chez Alpha Bookstore because Chez Alpha has copies of the Book of Juju. So if you're like, well, I want to get your book, I live in Dakar, you can go to Chez Alpha. So shout out to that bookstore. And big shout out to La Bibliothèque Nomade. That's who I did my book talk with. And it was in Maïstes, I believe. And it was my friend Fatima and my new friend Awa did the book talk. They moderated and it was absolutely beautiful. It was a beautiful day. We sat outside in this beautiful space. We sat on the ground. Like, it was so good, y'all. So I wanted to talk about some of what we talked about in the book talk. And this book talk was different. And I love these talks where it's not just me lecturing, where I'm listening, like it's conversational. And I wanted this book talk to be conversational because I'm in a new place. I'm in Senegal. I don't practice a Senegal religion. I didn't know much about their mysticism. And quite frankly, I really don't know much about Islam. And Senegal is a primarily Muslim country. So pretty much everyone who came I think maybe with the exception of like 3 people, practice Islam. And they all didn't practice the same kind of Islam. And what's really interesting about Islam in Senegal is that because Sufism is so big there, and that's like a Islamic mysticism, it is a way of practicing Islam that's not always accepted or even acceptable in a lot of primarily Arab countries. So different countries will view how Senegalese practice Islam and think that it is haram, which is like against Islamic moral code. Because there's singing that's happening that's not supposed to happen. Like, but here's my thing. A lot of people who are West African or descended from West African people, we tend to worship and venerate and pray in a very specific way that does not always align with what is seen as like the right way or the respectful way. It tends to be more emotive. We can be dramatic. It tends to be more give the drama, right? And so that's even seen in Islam. So I learned a lot about that, and also indigenous tradition. What I'll also say is that a lot of the people that I talk to, even though people there are like Muslim, I'm telling you, we had a tour. When we had our tour, they would stop the tour, be like, okay, I got to go pray. I'll start the tour in a minute. Like, people are praying. There's prayer rooms everywhere you go. In the airport, there's prayer rooms. Like, people are very consistent with their faith there. It's actually really beautiful to see. You see people praying all the time. You see people praying in the streets all the time. Like, when it's time to pray, people stop to pray. But even with that, so many people also practice their indigenous faith. Like, it was not weird to, yes, practice Islam, but be like, oh yeah, I went to the Maribu, which is a spiritual healer, and I take spiritual baths, and we sacrifice the cow, and we do it's very normal. And that was refreshing for me, because I think sometimes in Christian traditions, people tend to hide. They see the lady, but it's like you don't talk about it, or Christians, especially in America, tend to be more loud about denouncing people who do anything else or venerate their ancestors. And in Senegal, that just wasn't the case. It's like, yes, we're Islamic, but why would I not see the miracle? Why would I not take a spiritual bath? Why would I not do this dance? Why would I not do these rituals? So these are some interesting things I learned. So, and it made me feel the connection to hoodoo, which was practiced by captive African Americans and their descendants, because hoodoo is a practice of African retention. And I saw receipts of that while I was in Africa. So the first story that I was talking to, so Dan of La Bibliothèque Nomade, which is the library that supported my book talk, and they're a moving library. I love that. They're not stagnant. They move to different places. So Dan was telling me that he had a friend who is Bayanuk, from the Bayanuk tribe, the Bayanuk ethnic group. And this friend was living his life. He had a job, or he was in school or something, but he had a really pivotal dream that basically his ancestors or whoever came to him and said, like, you are to be a healer. You are the healer of the lineage. So that's what you do. And so in Bayanuk culture, if you have that dream, you are to stop whatever you're doing. You might be going to school to be an engineer. Once you had that dream, you ain't no engineer. You are to go back to your village and study with the traditional healers, and you become a healer. So Dan said that he had a friend that had that dream, left his life, went back to the village, and is now a traditional Bayanuk priest. And Dan shared that story with me because I was sharing the story about how I had a very similar dream in my psychology program when I was going to get my doctorate. I had a dream I've told so many times on this show about, ancestors coming to me and saying the same thing. And then also my grandmother had a dream as well. I didn't tell her about my dreams. I didn't tell her the work that I was doing. And she also saw me being a healer. She said the Holy Spirit told her in 3 dreams. So she told me. And it made me feel so connected to the Bayanuk tradition, because the importance of dreams is so important in my life. And the reason that I'm in this work and have Juju Bay is because of a dream. So I felt so affirmed in my own experience, because it's always sounded really, wild to me to be like, how'd you get in this work? Oh yeah, I had a dream and I listened. But that there are people and cultures where the seriousness that I took the dream, they also take the dream. And they also took the dream. And so I felt in some ways I felt less special in my own story, and I appreciated that because I found a semblance of home. And I was like, maybe maybe I'm Bainuk, okay? Like, period. The next thing I learned was about the Lebu people. So I had some people there who are Lebu, which is another ethnic group found in Senegal and Senegambia region. And they live mostly near the Cape Verde Peninsula. So Lebu people are said to be very mystical, that they are some of the old healers. They are also seen as water people because they live on the peninsula. So they kind of grow in fishing communities primarily. And so someone there was saying the Lebu people, you would go to them if you need water healing. So they use water to curse. They use water in their medicine primarily because they are the water people. And so if there is any spiritual work done, that's what they go to. That also made me think about people who may be more attracted to water than others. What might your ancestry from Africa say about your connection to that element? And I have a lot of water connections as well. So then we talked about the Fulanis, who traditionally, again, are Islamic, but traditionally what they worshipped and they still venerate is cow and cattle. That is such an important part of their practice now. They slaughter cattle for a certain, of course, sure, for food, but also for certain spiritual ceremonies. Cows are just highly revered and respected animals. Now, the Sarah people, I learned, have been historically noted as an ethnic group that practices matrilineally and patrilineally, and they have violently resisted the expansion of Islam. So the Sarah people have only become Islamic within the past 100 years. The Wolof people, for example, have practiced Islam for hundreds of years. So not everybody in Senegal and the Senegambia region is the same level of Islam. Some people have been practicing for centuries, and some people have been practicing within the 100 years. But the Serer people specifically have violently fought. So they also have a lot of people who practice their traditional practices, what people would call animism. And they have a tradition where they venerate Rug, which is the embodiment of both a male and female to whom offerings are made at the foot of trees, like the sacred boab tree. So I touched the boab tree. I saw the boab tree while I was there. That is such a sacred tree. When I did a tour with Tonton Isa, he was like, "This is the boab tree. You need to hug it, touch it, do something. Get your blessings." I did. I was hugging that daggone tree, okay? And lastly, the Wolof people, which is the biggest ethnic group in Senegal, they practice Islam, like I said, for hundreds of years. And contemporary Wolofs are predominantly Sufi, so that's the Islamic mysticism, Muslims, and belong to different Islamic brotherhoods. Now, some of the rituals that came up in the talk was I learned that in Senegal, sometimes people or certain ethnic groups, people will spill water over car tires if you're taking a long journey to ensure that you get there safely. People also say that spilled water is symbolic. So if you have water and you drop it, it is seen as a good omen because water is a blessing. Water brings healing. Water brings goodness. So spilling water is actually a good thing. Now, there are also some ethnic groups who believe that you do not sweep your home at night, that you shouldn't use salt at night, or spilling salt is seen as bad luck or a bad omen. Sound familiar? This is things that we've seen across the diaspora that we've seen in Hoodoo. And I've also heard in Hoodoo, I didn't grow up with this, but I have heard people saying that you're not supposed to talk too loud at night. Because in their belief system in Senegal, I heard if you speak too loud at night, the spirit will take your voice. So you're supposed to, it's nighttime. Let's get a cute indoor voice. So specifically with the sweeping and the salt and even the spilling of water, I was like, that's hoodoo. That's hoodoo stuff. Why? Because hoodoo is African retention. And some of our ancestors came from the Senegal region to the U.S. and kept some of these belief systems, which is why some hoodoos believe that it's bad luck to spill salt, because some people in Senegal also believe that it's bad luck to spill salt. Or in hoodoo, you have to be careful of how you sweep, who you sweep, not getting people's foot with the broom. Okay. Very similar. Could be something that stemmed from this not sweeping at night. Maybe not sweeping because you can't see. I don't know. So I wanted to uplift this because I think that it ties into the fact that we can see our connection. I'm not saying that, everyone in other places are our family. I don't think we have to make this overly romanticized connection to the continent. And I do think that there is a critique in that, like over romanticized. Oh, Africa is perfect. That's home. That's where we need to be. I don't necessarily even always think that. Because we are still strangers, but we're like familial strangers. It's still, there is still a connection. There is still a kinship. That's still your cousin. It's just a cousin you don't know like that, but we can get to know that cousin. It's just that simple. I don't mean it's your home. It's just your cousin house, your peoples that maybe you don't see as much, but they're still your peoples, right? So when I had that experience in Senegal and people were sharing these things with me, I was like, wow, Africanity has lived on beyond for hundreds and hundreds of years. How resilient and powerful is that? That's amazing. But y'all don't want to be amazing. You want to deny that. So I don't know what y'all is, but our last segment today is Dear Juju. If you would like to write into Dear Juju for me to answer your questions, I want me to read your listener letters, I might do it. Reach out to me at dearjuju@yahoo.com. Come to me with whatever you're thinking about. It can be spiritual stuff. It can be personal stuff. It can be work stuff, whatever it is. Reach out to me and I would love to answer your email. Okay, so today's Dear Juju letter reads, Dear Juju, I've been learning about Ifa from a godparent in my personal studies as best I can. And I want to speak to a Babalawo I trust to see if I'm ready to receive my hand of Ifa. But I'm very aware and honestly scared about the deep personal work I'll have to take to the next level. How did you know you were ready, besides the reading, to pursue your growth in this tradition, especially coming from an Abrahamic background growing up? I don't want to treat Ifa like a band-aid to fix all of my problems or to act as if it will save me, because I know in my heart this will require immense personal self-discovery and patience to build good character, and that is some scary stuff to embrace. Signed, V. Thank you so much, V, for your question. I get this question quite a bit. I think it's going to be, we're all on our own journeys, and so it may... When you know you're ready, that's when you're ready. There's no exact yes, Ifa is for you, or yes, you should practice this religion, because you're right. It does take a lot of self-discovery. It does take a lot of growth. It does take a lot of patience. It does take a lot of sacrifice, a lot of energy. You have to pay for a hand of Ifa. That's money. It is an investment. You have to be ready for the investment aspect, unless it's coming up in a reading or divination, like you need Ifa, like for some health reason, or there's something serious, so you need to hop on it. I will say take your time. Make sure that you like the Ile. Make sure that you like the Babalawo. Make sure that you feel comfortable in the readings. Make sure that it's speaking to your spirit. And that's when you'll know, you'll feel, okay, I'm ready. I always joke and say that I'm a bad priest, and I say it tongue in cheek. I don't think that I'm actually a bad priest, but I say it because I'm not someone who just thinks that everybody needs to jump into Ifa and that Ifa is for everybody and, you should just do it and rush into it. And just because the reading said it, that means you have to hop on things immediately. I do think that we have to take our times. I think that we also have to be tapped into our own ori, our own sense of self, our own brains, our own higher power. Yes, the Babalawo, the Iya, whoever can tell you what you need to know. But what do you think about it? What does your ori say? That's not being a bad priest, but I just think for me, sometimes I notice people in the tradition, they hear something and then it's like that immediately, I have to listen. It's this or nothing. And I think that the practice is a lot more malleable than people give it credit to, and that it is not fire and brimstone. So we don't have to operate like that. When you feel called and ready, that's the time. When you got the coin to do your hand to be fire, then you do it. When you have the energy to do it, then you do it. It does cause a rupture in your life. You're going to lose things. Like, if I clears you out. So are you ready for the clearing? And I'm not saying that in a way to make you afraid. It's just preparation. So that's how I knew. I just knew that it was time. I felt it in my bones. I felt it in my body. That didn't mean I knew exactly what I was signing up for. That doesn't mean that I felt like I was perfect or that I had everything together. But I just knew because I was in touch with my ori. So I encourage you to just do your ori work. Pray to your ori. Put your hands on your head. Say your prayers every morning. If you have my book, I talk a lot about ori there and ori work. So really, I would say when your ori says yes, that is when you go. Unless it is coming up that is an emergency and you need to move forward. But otherwise, you'll be okay. Thank you so much, V, for that question. And remember, if you would like me to answer your questions, reach out to me, dearjuju@yahoo.com. My closing piece today is we're going to do our next segment, Jew for Thought. This is where I just share my last ideas with you all, my thoughts, my insights. So today's Jew for Thought, I want us to remember to not give up on intellectualism. I say so many times, we are in the era of disinformation, misinformation, and anti-intellectualism. And it is not just the people out there who are anti-intellectual. That anti-intellectualism is seeping into our own communities, with our own people, with Black people, with people of color. So don't keep thinking that being anti-intellectual is that's just them people. That's just Republicans. No, it's also your mom. It's also you. It's also your cousin. It's also your friends. We have to vehemently reject that. We cannot be a people that do not value research, real research. Reading, our reading comprehension, growing in our reading skills, being in community and talking to people about what we research, and sharing our ideas and being thoughtful. We cannot afford to lose that. Question everything. And I think that the one thing I like about the people who deny our history, I think you're asking the wrong questions, but damn it, you're asking questions. I'm just encouraging all of us to keep asking. Keep asking questions. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. If you would like to keep up with me, you can find me on my website, jujubay.com. That's where you book a reading. That's where you can reach out to me, contact me, bring me out to your schools, your universities, all the things. On socials, I'm at ITSJJBAE. It's Jujubay on pretty much everything. So you can reach out to me there. And of course, get into the comments. Let me know how you all felt about this episode and what y'all want to see from me for the remaining episodes of the season. Well, I appreciate y'all. I love what the kids be doing with this heart. Love y'all real bad. And remember, all you need is a little juju and to keep using that brain. See ya. Your ancestors are from fucking Africa. Bye. A Little Juju podcast is brought to you by SpectreVision Radio. Executive producer and host is me, Jujubay. Producer and DP, Jenahye Johnson. Consulting producer, Janicia Francis. Audio and visual editor, Clyde Ramos. And production support from Alex de Palma. Set design by Cowrie Studios and Jujubay.